When the angels take him down to the temple. Yeah. Yeah. Let's keep everybody reminded that when they say angels, they're talking about messengers in Hebrew. Okay, it's not just angels with wings and flapping around and all that stuff. It's messengers that have a purpose and an assignment and a task. Okay? And when they come before you, it's as if Yah, if they come and speak to you, it's as if Yah himself, the Father himself, were speaking to you directly. And that's how you're to address them stuff. But anyway, go ahead. Rico has court teaching on that.
Your reference to Exodus.
Yes.
That cloud that comes down
on mountains. Yeah.
It's always struck me as that's a cloud different than what they had.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But maybe I misunderstood what you're saying.
Yeah.
I thought you said that it was a cloud.
A cloud of the presence.
Out of Egypt.
In some cases, yeah, there's the cloud of the presence and we'll look at that in detail next week. I'm trying to think. There's so many verses. There's about, I don't know, close to 100 verses we'll look at. We won't read all of them, but we'll group them into the categories and stuff. And one of the things that the cloud of the presence does is guide them out. Some of the things is the Shekinah glory representation of it. Some of the times it's a cloud of the presence, like the transfiguration, and he speaks out of and this is more what it's like around the mountain, the cloud of the presence, because his presence is in this cloud with the thunder and the lightning and all this other stuff that's going on, and the fire and the smoke. So his presence is there. It isn't like it's more intense than just a cloud leading them through the desert. So how you distinguish between what the intensity is of his presence and stuff, maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you, but that's all the different ways that we're going to look at next week about the cloud.
Because he didn't want to keep people off the mountain. He didn't want anybody to bring in.
Right. If an animal even touched the base of the mountain, they would be stoned. So, yeah.
I think we're thinking that this cloud that led the Israelites, a cloud by day and a fire by night, and moved ahead for them to move forward and move to the rear as protection against the Egyptians. We're looking for something very similar to protect us.
With all this chaos that's going around.
That's right.
That's right. And that's the very specific, the good news part of the teaching, specifically next week, is that we see all these things leading up to this week in part 1 and 2 of the Greater Exodus teaching, is that all this chaos is going on around, and people are trying to kill, and there's fire and brimstone or meteors falling from the sky, and the blood the moon turns to blood, and the sun doesn't shine, and there's one day that's neither night nor day, and all this, and you can't see, and you're trying to feel your way around, and all this stuff, and all this, and yet when we rely on the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, to guide us through all this time, and in fact, we should be practicing today that in our lives, that as we go throughout our day, and I make an effort to do that myself. I know Glenda has in times, and I'm sure some of you all have too. As you're going throughout the day, listen to his voice, tune yourself in. Maybe you're not perfect, but if you mess up, you ask for forgiveness, and you get right back into that flow, and listening to his voice, and pay attention, so he'll tell you little things. Do this, do that, and this is going to happen, or this person's going to call, or you need to pray for so and so, or this week you need to bring meat because he didn't tell you because nobody else brought any meat this week, or something like that, to the Shabbat service. Or give this loaf of bread that you just baked and give it to your neighbor because they really need it, or call this person on the phone, or and those kinds of things. Those things that we can do to practice and becoming sensitive to his voice, because that's that still small voice and the inner voice that you hear the Ruach most of the time. It's not the loud, those are the 10 words, the 10 commandments, thou shalt not, you don't hear the audible voice most of the time. In fact, today they think you're crazy if you hear the audible voice. And they want to put you in medicine and put you in the hospital. But you see what I'm saying? This still small voice, it's just guiding, directing you little things, throughout the day. Maybe you turn off the highway and you go a certain route they have you go, and you find out later there was a wreck there, or something today. For example, that was like my example for today, because we had the late start because of coming back on the freeway. There had been an accident, and it was just clear just about the time I was leaving the church over there for the funeral and stuff, and we head back, but there was still congestion and everything. But if I'd left earlier, a little bit earlier plan, that I would have maybe, I would have been caught up in that accident or something like those kinds of things. The things that Yah is looking out for you, and you never know and stuff. So, or you don't know most of the time, the things that He's looking out for you, because He is that loving Father that cares about us and can speak to us and tells us everything. And He said, I'll tell you in advance, He's going to tell us things before they happen and stuff. In the scripture we read today, I forget what it said now, but anyway. So, that being said, any other questions or comments? I love your guys' comments, so I like hearing them. So, all right, if not, I'm going to take a break and drink some of this water, and then we'll get started on the worship service. Yes.
So that I can keep all of this in mind.
Yes.
Okay, so there is no rapture of the church. The church is not considered something separate that's going to be tucked up and taken away during...
I wouldn't say there's no rapture of the church. I would say it's not... they have a perspective on it that's very limited to only just the church, and not the Jews, and not this, and not all the believers in the Father and the Elohim and the Abraham, I would say. And whether it's a rapture that happens the way they say it.
Separate from the Jews. Or separate from the Messianic Jews. Like, there's something that's supposed to happen to the church, and then there's something that's supposed to happen to the Jews. But it's not. It's all
His people.
All one. The Bible says it's not Jewish.
And so, hence you see why we call it the Greater Exodus, whether we're exited out,
It's just
wherever.
One incident. You have the tribulation that begins. You have the revelation of the Antichrist. Everybody's still here unless you've died. And everybody, including the church, is going to pass through it. And then when this begins, will be when Yeshua reveals Himself and comes back to set up His kingdom.
Well, and there'll be a big battle and stuff like that, and I'm sure that's going to be going on at some point. Throughout some of this, there are going to be those who fight against Yahweh and His taking over and being in charge of the world, so to speak. You say, oh, it's not going to happen, or, like in the news over the weekend, they're going to rise up and say, no, this person, this is God, or whatever, and so there's going to be battles that take place, and we see through the crossing rivers, oceans dry shod, and going back to the land and all that stuff. That's the ultimate destination for those who are all of Elohim's people. However, He defines and He judges on who's His people and who's not. It's up to Him, So it isn't up to me. Or it isn't up to the church preachers to say, this denomination gets to go and this one doesn't, and this one's part of His people and this one isn't, And so, you all heard sermons on that in the past, I'm sure. The people that you don't expect to be there will be there, some of them, and some of the people you expected to be there won't, kind of thing. So
trying to piece it all together from a partly Christian.
Sure, we all have our
what is the falling away that they speak of that occurs prior to all of this? They said that the man of sin would not be revealed unless there was a falling away first,
I
right?
have a theory on that, actually.
Go ahead, tell us, Julie.
Well, the Christian church since the mid-1800s has promulgated this rapture theory, which is not based on scriptural anything, that all the believers are going to be caught up. They base it on Thessalonians, and that they're going to escape everything and flowing. But the problem is that if everybody's bought into that, and then it doesn't happen, that's going to be a lot of people going, well, He's not real. That's a falling away. That's part of it, I think.
That's what I was going to say too.
And I also too think, since we don't understand the whole picture future. I think that's why he says when you see these signs, look up, and then you need to be constantly looking up and expecting him because we don't understand it all. So you have to be ready at all times because we don't know the hour of his coming. So we don't know that.
And what my thing too is to have all these timelines and the charts, and those are okay to get an idea and clue, but remember, our Father is not on a Western mindset, straight line, linear calendar. This is, he's on his. And his is a cyclical Hebrew thinking, you know, where it goes around, it goes around, it goes around.
And I also think that when it says, just following what we were reading earlier in Thessalonians, it says, you have no need of me telling you the times and seasons and all this, because all the believers are supposed to know the times and seasons. They're supposed to know his feast.
Yeah.
They're supposed to know that the day no man knows is Yom Teruah, because it's the only feast day that happens on the Rosh Chodesh, which we don't know when they're going to cite them. So we know he's going to arrive on a Yom Teruah at some point. That is a given. The believers should be watching for that. Whether we would say which year it is and all that, I think is kind of silly. But, you know, that's why we're looking up all the time. So we know when to expect it.
But then at the same time, Steve, you might know, like she said, we just don't know what year and stuff, but we don't know when we might be going. So we have to be ready at all times.
Well,
Because we might not be alive when it happens.
would it not be a true statement to say that God gave those commandments to his people to set up a system of pattern that generation after generation would understand his pattern? And it is through his commandments that we are able to perceive these patterns that he's talking about. So if you have church people who are living under grace and do not follow those commandments and do not understand those commandments and cannot recognize the patterns, that the time will come when they're just not going to understand what's going on. They're not going to have those patterns and that information to base any faith on. You know, that not that, I mean, that faith is in Jesus Christ, but he said what he said. You know, say, and it's, well, New Testament, he only gave 2 commandments: love God and love your neighbors. That's not true. The New Testament says he taught his disciples about the prophets, and he went into the synagogues on the Sabbath and he taught. You know, I mean, there's nothing to me that says Jesus did away with the law. Okay, so when this time starts coming, it's going to be those people who have obeyed his commandments, I think, that are going to understand what's going on. It's the rest of these people who lived a life of perverseness and disobedience and did not do, they won't have that information. So it's very easy for people to fall away from having faith in God when you think that he's one thing and he's actually something else. He turns out to be something else. Or things go a certain way, like you're talking about. People think they're going to be raptured out. That whole theory is only a couple of 100 years old, like the dispensations. So, you know, what do you think? God gave some great revelation to some Joe Bob, you know, in the 1800s that didn't come out through his son. It's kind of ridiculous. I mean, I think that is the Bible is the revelation. That's it. And so, I mean, and I've outlined this myself. I'm being leery of people that are coming out and saying, "Oh, God told me this, and you know, God gave me this revelation and this stuff." If they're not walking that line, they're a false prophet. It's very possible that you should not trust a word that's coming out of their mouth. You know? Me.
When you want to hear something even scarier, you might want to listen to Steve Bergson's teaching on how to identify a false prophet and all that kind of stuff, because he lays it out pretty clearly that the anti-Messiah will be Jesus Christ. Not Yeshua, but Jesus, because everybody's going to think, oh, he's here, he's going to save us all, he's
The Greek Jesus, to use the term. Mhm.
And that will be a falling away also, because they're going to be so taken in. They will take in the barrier elect or whatever in the hospital. What else would be more profound than that? Than that Jesus comes back and he's there. Boom.
Mhm.
So we have to be very discerning, and anybody that doesn't say that the Torah is still valid and we should be doing it is a false prophet, period, exclamation point,
Exactly.
done.
Exactly.
That's what the scripture says.
There actually is a person out there who claims to be the Messiah, even today. And they get called, since their numbers are associated with the congregation, we get called, and I had to actually block the number and stuff because they were saying that he was born, whatever, and he's in the world now, and they're trying to draw people to him, and they're doing, I guess they're doing fundraising, but that's not the big issue about it. They're just the claim that he is the Messiah, and he's come for the second time already, and he's already here, and so.
Satan has been the great counterfeiter of everything. Anything that's holy, he has perverted. And it only has to be a little. It's like the whole story of Revelation of God's plan is in the astrology, is in the Mazarah. It's there. But he's co-opted all that and twisted it so that people, instead of looking to the stars to get their information about what's going to happen, in his timing, are saying, oh, we have to worship this, and they made it a God instead of just a tool for us to understand. He's told us everything in every imaginable way. In the stars, in nature. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever seen what a laminin is, but it's I'm not going to be able to describe it well. It's a molecule or something that holds life together.
Oh, they call it the God particle.
And it's shaped like a cross. And it's just, it's like one of those things that won't die. It's eternal and all this kind of stuff. It's like the foundation stone of life itself, and it looks like a cross. It's everywhere. It's like when Brad Scott says, encourage everybody to look in the stars and look in everything, because sooner or later they're going to drill down far enough and they're going to see him. Because he's everywhere, in everything.
Well, also, if you go back to the very beginning of the Bible, Satan's sole purpose was to stop man from following God's commandments. He did. And he has done so ever since. And he has perverted the gospel. In some instances, he's perverted the Bible with these newer versions that are taking words out and turning it into something else and leaving this out. I mean, his sole purpose is to pervert that. But ultimately, I think a true believer in their heart knows that whatever God says goes. If you read this book and you don't get out of that whatever God says goes, it's going to happen.
Doesn't matter what you believe. It's going to be what he says is going to be it.
All the logic in the world is not going to undo what God has said he wants for his people, or he wants his people to do. And there's just so much rebelliousness in people's heart to just continue to make excuses for the sin in their life and not have a desire to give it up. Worries me for a lot of people.
Okay. All right. Hey, Shabbat Shalom. Okay.